All right, guys, today we're going to move on to Chapter 9, Section 3. This is all about applying for employment. Now, some of you have already done this, and some of you are still not to that point, and that's fine. Anytime you apply for a job, it's going to look different from when you've applied the first time, second time, third time. It's always different. Each place that you apply has a different way about going through the application process. So, some key terms are application form, resume, career portfolio, and cover letter. So, let's go ahead and get started. Application activities. There are several ways that the application process can start. Number one, you might have to physically go to the place and get a paper form, fill it out with a pen, and then return it back to the place of employment. Sometimes you can fill out an application online, or you might need to submit a resume and cover letter. So, some different places have different things. If you're going to apply to a fast food restaurant or maybe a retail store, a lot of times those places are only going to really want an application where you just put your basic information, when you're available, that type of thing. But then when you start getting into maybe more of like full time positions where you hold like a specific job, like a teacher, or you're going to be an electrician, or you're going to be a plant manager. Those types of positions might require you to submit a resume and a cover letter. And we're going to talk about those as we go through this section. The very first thing that you need to do is come up with a personal data sheet. This is something that I did my very first time when I was applying for my teaching positions. This is basically you just combining all of your information that you have, education, experience, any certificates you hold. And it just summarizes all of your job related information. My personal data sheet looks more like a folder. It's where I've put all of my evidence of this. And there's going to be another term that we talk about in this section that kind of deals with this. But your personal data sheet is more, you just list in everything that you have and what makes you qualified: education, work experiences, references. An application form is something that a workplace might have you fill out before they have you come in and do an interview, or even they might not even interview you. But a basic application form asks for your basic information: name, address, social security number. Do you have a car? Are you 18 years or older so you can operate this heavy machinery? Sometimes it'll ask about education. Some places won't hire you unless you have a high school diploma or that you're registered in school. Any work experience. This is considered your first job task. So, the application process, even if you have to submit a resume and cover letter, they might still have you fill out an application. I had to fill out an application for Bismarck when I applied, and I also had to submit a resume and cover letter. So, first job task. Another thing that you might have to do is create a resume. Now, guys, if we were in class, we would totally go over this a lot more. But a resume is something that you will create and you need to keep with you from now until you've stopped working. I have an updated resume that I literally make changes to every year. I don't plan on getting a new job anytime soon, but it's nice to have that resume because, I'm getting my master's right now. Sometimes for classes that I want to get into, I have to submit a resume. So it's really nice to have that. Resumes look different for every single person. There are several different types of resumes. One might be an experience based. This is where you hit more on your work history that you've done and not so much on education. And this could be because maybe what you're doing doesn't necessarily require a bachelor's degree, it's based off of experience. And then we have a qualifications based. These are your abilities, experiences. These are more of like you have this degree, you've taken this seminar, you have this certificate. One is not better than the other, but it just depends on what job you're applying to. There's several different resume sections. Now, guys, we're probably going to use like Google Docs or Microsoft Word in order to generate a resume. If you get on Google Docs, you can just type in like resume templates and it'll bring it up and you'll be able to see what it kind of looks like. But when we're generating a resume, there's certain sections that are always going to be included. Number one is personal information, career objective, education, experiences, and career related honors and activities. So, a couple things. Personal information. One of the biggest key parts is that you're going to need to put an email address. Guys, we're not putting hot chick 95 on there. We're putting, my would be R Campbell at blah, blah, blah. You want to make it very general. You don't want to, even if it's like B ball guy 95. No, you want it to say your name. Career objective, this is, where you put to obtain a position at blah, blah, blah. Education experience, that's where you're putting, this is when you got this degree, this is when you worked here. Career related honors and activities, if you've been involved in any sports, any organizations, that's what goes in those sections. Some tips when you're writing a resume, make sure it's clean, organized, no errors. Sometimes people get hundreds of resumes at one time. If you have a spelling error or it doesn't look very nice, yours is probably going to get thrown out first. One page, I'm not saying it can't be 2 pages, but a lot of times 1 page is good. Most people take less than a minute to look over a resume. So you don't want it to be super long. Use action words. Be honest about your qualifications. Don't say that you can speak fluent Spanish if you barely passed Spanish 1. You need to be honest because sometimes, they might, oh, they can speak Spanish. Okay, they're going to work in customer service and they can work with all of our Spanish speaking customers because there's a need for that. Don't put that down if you're not qualified for it. For references, these are people that are going to say good things about you. Don't put family member names. If you've only worked for family members, then you need to, that's like the last resort of putting them. Put somebody else's name down that knows your work ethic. Teachers, coaches, anybody you've ever volunteered for. The one thing is references, I always include them. I always do. But if you're running out of room on your resume, you can always put available upon request in that section. So you don't have to include references. I like it just because it looks nice and they're probably going to ask for them anyway, but references can be excluded. So back when we were talking about the personal data sheet, I kind of was hitting on this vocab term, a career portfolio. I have this, it's in my desk at school. It's a file folder and it literally has any evidence I have of my ability and skills. So when I put that I'm a Microsoft Office specialist, it's not just because like, hey, I know what I'm talking about. I took a class because I passed it and I took this little test. I have a certificate that says I'm a Microsoft Office specialist. When I put that on my resume, I want to be able to show that I can back that up. I typically take my career portfolio with me on my interviews. That way, if they ask some questions about it, I can bring it up. You always want to have a cover letter and resume in this portfolio. It doesn't need to be for a specific place, but it's nice to have those on hand. Sample reports, materials, projects, anything that you've done that you're proud of, you want to include in this to show as evidence. I've I've put a couple lesson plans in my portfolio. That way, if they, when I go on an interview and they want to see some things that I've done, it's on there. Evidence of community activities. If you really hit on your volunteering, have some sheets of proof that you've done that. And any letters of recommendation. Remember, you need to have some of those so people can kind of get a feel for your character. One thing that we need to include with a resume when we're sending it into a potential employer is we need to include a cover letter. The cover letter is just like what it says, it's a cover letter. It's a letter that you put on top of your resume that you include when you mail this in to a potential employer. It is a way for you to communicate who you are as a person and even just maybe even talk a little bit more about what's in your resume. It also shows that you're able to effectively communicate in a letter. So make sure there's no spelling errors. It needs to be neat, courteous, and to the point. Include those three main sections of having an intro, development, and then conclusion. It's just a way for the employer to kind of get to know you and you to give them a little bit more information that might not necessarily come through your resume. For the introduction, make sure you grab the reader's attention in this cover letter. The reason for writing, refer to the specific job you want. Just realize that when you're applying to a place, there could be several other um, job openings. So you want to be specific that you're applying for that specific job. Brief summary of your experience and qualification, mention referrals. So, if somebody was like, hey, you should apply for this job, name drop them. It helps the person that's reading your resume and cover letter, it helps them remember you. For the development, highlight your background and experience. If there's something that you think needs more explanation in your resume, that's where you need to do that. Connect your skills and background to specific organizational needs. So you're going to need to do some research on the place that you're applying to. I always mention on there, on my resume about, I'm married to a farmer. That kind of shows that, hey, I'm not moving anywhere. You can depend on me for like not picking up and leaving. So those are some things that can be included. And then the conclusion, pretty much the whole point of sending in a resume and cover letter is to get an interview. Specifically, sending in a resume and cover letter, you're not going to get a job out of that. Some instances, yes, that might happen. But for the most part, the goal of your resume and cover letter is to get that interview. Once you get to that interview, that's where you're going to shine and people are going to get to see you and your personality. And then that's how you get hired. In that conclusion paragraph, you need to make sure that you put your contact information, your professional email, say, I would really like to set up an interview with you. You can call me at blah, 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 or you can email me at blah, blah, blah. Make sure you say how you would benefit the company. You are trying to get these people to call you for an interview. So one of the things that our book talks about is a targeted application letter. And this is it's a combination of a resume and cover letter. So it just provides a quick summary of your ability and what your ability would be to meet the needs of the organization. So it just lists the major skills and competencies that you have. It's just really to emphasize your achievements and skills so you'd be invited to come for an interview. So this is just a different take on the resume and cover letter. So because of technology, the way we apply for jobs has really changed. Online has really picked up on the whole application process. Many people are, applying to places online. I did not have to physically go into the office and get an application to apply. I applied online for my Bismarck position. Job seekers can apply an interview online. I have gone through and I've done an interview where it's been over the phone just because it's been for a place that's farther away. I've known people to do, FaceTime for an interview. And it's just, in case you really can't go in, maybe you're applying somewhere that's like across the country. That can happen as well. There's other ways that you can apply as well. You can call places to see if they're hiring, look at ads, job fairs, personal contacts. So we're not just using our online contacts, we can also, use these other contacts as well. Uh, Many organizations allow you to apply online, like I said before. Um, One thing that I really want to mention is when you upload an application, a resume, or a cover letter online, the format gets super screwed up. When I uploaded a resume one time for a specific job, when I went to go back and look at it, it was extremely messed up. So just keep the format super simple. Don't attach files that may be difficult to read. You know, some people don't have Macs, but when you format your document in a Mac format and you upload it, the person might not be able to read it. So it's always good to maybe even make it a PDF so it just opens up straightforward. They're going to search for keywords in there. So make sure that you highlight on like organization or things that you think are going to pop out to them. Cyber interviewing, we talked about that in a previous one. Sometimes people will do cyber interviews before they'll have you come in person, just so they can kind of weed out the people that were like, oh, we kind of like them, but before we maybe fly them out here, let's interview them over FaceTime or Skype. Um, Also, cyber interviewing, sometimes you guys will be interviewing for positions that you have to do certain tasks and they might make you take certain tests um, online to make sure that you can even do that. So if you say you can speak Spanish, maybe they give you a test and you have to show that you're proficient in Spanish. Those are just some of the things that they might do. So that's kind of it on this section. We will be starting the next section here in a couple days, and then we'll have an assignment. Don't forget to answer the form when you're done viewing this. See you guys later. Have a nice day.